Thank you for watching Truth and Justice with Vivian King. Tonight we're going to talk about something real important in April and in May in Houston, Harris County, and that is the importance of voting. In the studio tonight, we have former City Councilman Dwight Boykins. He was our City Councilman for District D, as in David. And we also have my usual sidekick, Danny Sneed. And so we're going to talk about the importance of voting from two different perspectives. So educationally, and then just common questions people ask us. And it's a little confusing right now because we had a March 5th election and now primary election to decide which Democrat would go against which Republican in November. So we'll talk about different aspects of that. You know, our mayor is now, he was formerly the senator, the state senator of District 15. Okay, of District 15. He had that position for about 40 years, 30 or 40 years.
Yeah.
And so it was a huge race in March 5th, but the two front runners are Jarvis Johnson and Molly Cook. It's real confusing right now because they're going to be in an election that's going on right now, early voting, April 22nd through April 30th, with the final election day being Saturday, May 4th. Then in this race is also a new position on the appraisal district, and we'll talk about that later. We also have a second election that's very important that is actually May 28th, but early voting is May 20th through 24th. So make sure you get out and vote. I'm actually on that election, and Jarvis Johnson and Molly Cook are also on that one again for Senate District 15. But I want to let former council member Dwight Boykins talk about why it is important to vote.
Well, first of all, it's very confusing what's going on, Vivian, but you did an outstanding job explaining it. And again, just to kind of reiterate what you said, for those who may not be aware, Senator Whitmire, now our mayor, had to give up his seat once he became the mayor of the city of Houston.
Right.
So you had candidates running, and now we're down to two candidates to fulfill his unexpired term. That's what you were referring to.
Yes.
Once that happens, then they have to run again in the same cycle with you for, what is that, May 28th?
Yes, May
Election
28th.
day.
Election day.
So that's in that senatorial district 15 seat. And that's very confusing. So people really have to turn out and vote for the representative they want, because if not, the people who show up, you know, may not be who you want, and that person become your senator.
Right.
Your election, Vivian, the one that you'll be in the primary, let me tell you, that runoff race is going to be very interesting. I think we're anticipating a low voter turnout based on what we're seeing, but it's going to be interesting because you have a lot of great candidates such as yourself is running with experience that, you know, you want a good showing. In the African American community, I know we have a lot of people that are in tune, but they're getting confused with the dates. They're asking me.
Right.
And I keep reminding them on the date. So we have to make certain we continue to get the information out, whether it's through churches, through radio, barbershops, or whatever we have to do to remind people to go out and vote.
Right.
Because this is important. And you in the new, I think the seat you're running for in the 486 is a newly created seat.
Right.
And so a lot of people don't even know that.
Right.
And so we just have to make certain that we get out and vote. My mama always told me when I turned 18, you vote every election. I don't care what it's for, and we try to do that. So, you know, I think it's important. But the first race in the Senatorial District 15 is confusing. I hope people don't vote one time and don't come back and vote again.
That's what's so important. And another thing that's confusing is Senatorial District 15 is carved out. So when you have state senatorial districts, it's carved out. It's our taxation and representation because we're taxed with the state. So that's not a county-wide race.
Right.
So it might not be on your ballot because Harris County is huge. And so it's only going to be on the ballot of those people who are in that county. But then there's these three new positions that were created originally by Senate Bill 2 of the 88th legislature. And it was on the ballot in November and it was voted upon. Mm-hmm. So now we have these three new positions for Harris County Appraisal District. Previously, everybody on the appraisal district was appointed. Now 5 positions will be appointed. It was always 8 appointed. So now it's 5 appointed, 3 that are running. And that is countywide. That's countywide. So that's real confusing also. And they'll only be on that ballot unless there's some type of runoff. And if it's a runoff, then that'll also be on May 28th. So that's confusing, but that election is going on right now for the Harris County Appraisal District. So, Danny, let's talk. I want you to represent the formerly incarcerated. Sometimes people ask me, they say, well, I can't vote because I'm on paper. Well, you can vote if you're on deferred adjudication and you're not on parole, because deferred adjudication is the deferment of guilt. So let me talk about that. When you get on probation in a court, felony or misdemeanor, it can be two ways. The defendant has to plead guilty, but the judge can say, I find you guilty, I sentence you to 5 years in prison, but I'm going to probate that 5-year sentence for up to 10 years. If the judge finds you guilty and probates the prison sentence, then you can't vote because you're a convicted felon. All right? That's what's a little bit confusing. And if you violate that probation, the most the judge can give you is 5 years because you pled to 5 years, probated for 10. On the other hand, most people get deferred adjudication. What that means is a defendant pleads guilty, but the judge says, well, I'll withhold finding you guilty. Or the judge might say, I will withhold a finding of guilt and place you on deferred adjudication, which means I'm deferring the sentence of guilt if you live out this probation for 5 up to 10 years. 10 years is the maximum you can be on probation. And if you live that out, you've never been found guilty. And because of that, you can vote if you're on deferred adjudication. It's a little confusing, but that's the law. If you get convicted, then if you revoke your deferred adjudication and get convicted, then you can't vote. So it's all about what the judge pronounces when you go up before that bench. If they defer finding you guilty, you can vote. If the judge finds you guilty, you can't vote until you're off of paper. If you go to prison and you get out of prison and you're on parole, say you get 10 years in prison, but you only do 2 years of the 10, and you have 8 years on parole, living in the free world, but reporting to a parole officer, and parole is controlled by TDC, the Texas Department of Corrections, then you can't vote. When that 8 years, you successfully live out that 8 years on parole, now you've done your whole 10 years, 2 years in the prison, 8 years supervised by the parole board and parole supervisors, then you can register again to vote as soon as you get off paper. But if you're on any kind of paper, that's a conviction, because to go to prison, you have to be convicted. The judge has to find you guilty and sentence you. So remember, that little caveat is that deferred adjudication. I hope that explains something.
Explains a lot.
All right. So,
and that's a real good question. And I don't know if it's fortunate or unfortunate I'm able to answer the question because I'm formerly incarcerated. But I don't look like what I've been through. And again, I want to thank you, Vivian, for creating a platform that educates us on how the system works. I like to say behind the curtain. You know, I use the analogy of the Wizard of Oz. Everybody was scared of the Oz until they found out it was just a person behind the curtain, just pushing buttons. And sometimes it's how the criminal justice system works. A lot of people have a lot of fear of it. But if you careful research, you'll find out there's people behind the scenes picking winners and losers. They're deciding people's lives. And those people are elected officials. That's why it's so important that we stay engaged, stay informed. And when someone asks us to vote, and say if I'm out asking people to vote, I think we should carry the message a little farther than saying, you should vote. Not only should I tell them they should vote, I should be able to tell them who I think they should vote for and why, and how is it going to affect their lives. It sounds like a cliche, but it's not. Our elected local officials control more how we live our lives than the people at the White House.
right.
We want to wait till every 4 years to get excited about voting in the presidential election, which we should. But between that time, how we live, our roads, our schools, how the money that we pay in the taxes here in the city is spent, we should be invested in knowing where this money is going and who is it going to. And how I live in my neighborhood is there a way I can advocate for to improve how I live in my neighborhood? These things are done through local elected officials, and none is no more powerful than your mayor. And here in Houston, we look at the mayor as more of, I'm gonna say a token or a mascot, but he has a lot of real power. But you know who really has power? Judges. Something that you're running for, something I'm excited about, something I'm invested about, letting many people that I run into understand why it's important to have not people that you like on as judges, people that's going to be fair and impartial.
Right.
I would like to say people that look like you, but I think if they're going to put more people that are brown and black in prison, then the people that should be making those decisions should reflect what that looks like too.
And let me change the subject for just a minute. That you brought up something that I want everybody to speak on. We're going to always talk about voting tonight, but you know, it does trouble me that so many young people are running for judge, because you only have to be a lawyer 5 years in Texas to run for judge, and you don't ever have to practice law. As long as you have a active bar license, which means you've taken 15 hours of continuing legal education, which we call CLE. As long as you take 15 hours, pay your dues, and you've been a lawyer 5 years, you could be a car salesman for those 5 years. But as long as you took 15 hours of continuing education and you've been a lawyer 5 years, you can run for judge. So there's nothing obvious that tells you whether people are qualified. I mean, to me, I take the judicial role very seriously. If I'm going to officiate over death penalty cases, any kind of murder, rape, I take pride in the fact that I have tried over 150 cases. I take pride in the fact that I've tried all those type of cases. But it is troubling when sometimes the judges that are elected have never officiated over a case. Because, you know, just think of a referee of a football game if they've never played the game. Just think of a referee of a baseball game if they've never played the game, if they've never studied the game. What if a referee of a baseball team used to be a car salesman, and then all of a sudden he becomes the referee? I mean, I think we should, I'm an advocate for more education and more transparency. So when you vote for people, you need to not go with the gossip, but go with, you know, have they ever been disciplined by the bar? Yeah. Experience. Have they tried the cases in the discipline that they're over? Because some people run for civil, but all they've done is criminal. Yeah. Some people run for criminal law, but all they've ever done is civil. Yeah. So you've never officiated. So you're going to be a little hesitant to officiate over something by expert lawyers if you've never officiated. I mean, you work for Veterans Affairs, but you're a veteran. So you, Danny, you can relate to veterans because you've been there, done that, can sympathize with most issues that they encounter, you know, compared to your coworkers who've never worked, who've never been veterans.
What does the term populist mean to your argument that people should have more experience, when we see in the climate today where the most popular person, likable person is being elected and not looking at their experience?
Even for presidential, let's look at presidential. I mean, someone, just because they run a business, but do they care about, I mean, when I look at Trump, I don't see caring anywhere. All I see is self-serving, caring about myself, being disrespectful to women, disrespectful to the Constitution. And this is the leader that is supposed to be setting the tone for how we interact with one another. I'm very concerned and very disappointed in his antics. He might, beneath it all, be a good person. I don't know. But I'm just saying to say I'm going to grab a woman by the coochie, I'm going to, all the negative things and think that's cute. I could kill somebody on, you know, Fifth Avenue and nothing happened to me. Why would you even say something like that when you know these kids are killing each other with guns and so easy to draw the trigger? I mean, we got to be concerned about our presidents too.
I want to touch something on what Danny was talking about, local control or local elections. Yes. He's absolutely correct. Vivian and I kind of run in a circle with some friends, and we talk politics a lot. And one of the things, a guy, we call him Big Baby, he always tells a story about, you know, people in our community of color get elected and there's nothing to show what they've done. in the community in their role, whether you're a city council member, school board, community college, state rep, judge, or whatever. So I think we as a community and as a race has also hit the reset button and look at why, as Vivian mentioned about experience for that job, what qualifies me and why am I running for this position? Because I think when I ran for city council, I used to tell people, I'm not a politician, I'm a public servant. I'm here to serve people and their needs, right? And you have to do that. You can't get caught up in, whether it's the mayor. I went against both mayors on some issues, but both of them respect what I was trying to do.
Let me just say this, Dwight.
Yeah.
You've always been a public servant. You've always been there to help people.
Yeah.
Talk about some of the things you've done while you were on city council and since you've been off of city council that shows that you care about the community. You just didn't fade away.
Yeah.
Because I've watched so many people run, and if they lose, they just fade away. You never hear from them anymore. But I know you've still been active in the community.
Well, Vivian asked me a question, but I'm gonna throw it back at her. Vivian worked as a defense lawyer, then went to work at district attorney's office. At the same time, still helping young lawyers. I've seen her and giving people counsel on what she believes in situations that are critical. So that's what I call a community servant, public servant, Vivian, and that's the truth about you. And a lot of people know that. We call her Black Olivia Pope, but
right.
and we
I like
say that out of respect because she cares about people. When I served, I campaigned, I had a push card, and I said, here are 4 things I want to do. I want to create a tax increment reinvestment zone in Sunnyside. They had no idea what that was. I said, a picture is like the gallery area. Gulf Gate. When it was a ghost town, now money is collected, part of it stay in that area. Same what happened with Sunnyside. And it started at $10,000, now it's up to $10 million.
Wow.
And the board members were not political friends, only people from the area that own land, and pastors who have a vested interest. And I also said I was going to create a second chance jobs program.
Hold on. You went too fast. When you said that T, isn't that the TERS?
TERS.
Now tell us what it stands for again.
Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone.
Right, and the nickname for that is TERS. You
Sorry
hear that
about that.
all over
Yeah.
town. So we have to educate people.
Yeah, and I'm glad you...
Tell them what that is. Yeah,
how that help me or not help me?
Well, what it is, if you live in the Sunnyside area, the Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone is basically this. You have a blighted area that has infrastructure needs, to deal with. Some of them is how you write them. You can deal with public safety to a certain degree, mainly infrastructure. And so if you send $1 of your money to the city, 10 cents will stay in the boundaries that you select. So it's from 610 to the Beltway, McCowell Road, Martin Luther King to Alameda, up in that area. So anytime new businesses come and you want to encourage businesses to come, part of that tax money stays in that boundary. You got me? For improvement of drainage and different projects.
Who does accounting for that? Is that the city attorney or the controller?
Yes.
Kind of.
Yes. It comes back to the controller because each board has their own accountant. I made sure I appointed an accountant from the area, but they work with the city, absolutely,
Gotcha.
controller's office. So the Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone gives that neighborhood, blighted area, an opportunity to develop their own to a certain degree. They can't do it by themselves because they're only getting a dime out that dollar or a nickel out of that dollar. And then I created what I call a second chance program to give those who made mistakes in the past. I don't like calling people inmates. Because you're a child of God, first of all. I don't like calling people, hey, you made a mistake and that's what it is. Here's a second chance or a third chance to get yourself together. And a lot of people have done it, Danny. You're a poster child of what it's about, how you got yourself together. And I know a lot of other people.
After 3 times. So he's on a 4th chance. Is your 4th chance? 4th and final. Your final chance.
You know what they say, who's counting?
Who's counting? but look at you, Danny. And then I created a program to help seniors. To Vivian's question about what have I been doing since I came out of office. So I created, while I was on city council, a program to help seniors with minor home repairs at no cost. And we repaired about 607 homes. Kept the board in place, all seniors on the board, kept the board in place, started raising money, and we're still raising money, and every dime helps seniors. No salaries, no overhead, anything. So if you give me a $1,000 donation, that's one house, 5,000, 5 homes. So we kept that going, and then we received a call, from a company called Dalco Roofing. they wanted to partner with our nonprofit because they heard about it, and they wanted to give away a free roof throughout the county, though, and partner with us to do, like if they had a roof leak, we would do the minor repair for 12 different seniors throughout the calendar year, and we did that. And I still go and cut a grass or two for a senior if I see they're in need. So, I mean, you do things, man, and you don't have to have the camera on you. Vivian, that's why I tell Vivian, and I admire her so much because I know the counsel she gives to people who need help as a judge. And Vivian, I know the question was at me, but I want to go back to you. You said something. Experience matters in those courts.
Right.
I had the opportunity to work as a contract as a district attorney's office because Kim wanted to kind of work with my second chance program. And I got to see how that DA's office operate and some of the judges. And man, let me tell you, you got to have a judge. When they talk about these judges releasing these, first they tried to blame the DA's office, releasing these folk on these bonds, and it was the courts. And, man, you got to have somebody who understands. The thing about Vivian King, what I like, is that not only every case won't be the same. That's important to me. You don't just paint everybody with the same brush. She gonna look into that person's heart, mind, and make the right decision. And I trust her with that. So Vivian, I give you a lot of credit for what you're trying to do.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna do all I can to help you. And Danny, I'm just so proud of you, man. You can have 20 chances in my book because I'm a big fan.
Right. Oh yeah.
So,
oh, yeah.
so to your point.
So voting, the reason I'm going back to this, who you vote for is important. One of you guys said it's not about who you like, it's who's most qualified. I've had many people come to me and said, Dwight, can you help me with seniors? What have you done in the community?
Right.
What have you done to help people?
Right.
Because you get that little influence, a little power, it goes in your head, you can't nobody touch you. We running somebody against you the next time.
Right.
Because you're not for the community, you're for self. So study the candidates, get on the internet, read, see what they've done. And if it's somebody you know and respect, just tell them, hey, I'm sorry, I can't do it because you're not ready. Be honest with them. You're not ready for this role. And I think that's important.
I agree with you too. We do have to, and we have a lot of good judges. I want to say that. I'm not saying any of this to say we don't have good judges. We have great judges. We have great minority judges that are experienced, that work hard. But I'm just saying that's part of what do you look for in a judge or a state representative or a city council person, and that is we need to be informed. So I'm giving you information to tell you these are the things you look for. We have to get out and talk to people. We have to volunteer. If you care about the community, you have to volunteer. You can't just criticize. What's very difficult is just hearing people criticize. I started this show back in 2011 because after I'd run for judge, I would go to big places, like Party on the Plaza, and try to talk to people about the importance of voting. And I would end up talking to one person for 30 minutes that didn't want to vote and telling me it was no good on voting. They would tell me how the criminal justice was run. It was all lies. They didn't know how it was run at all. And I was like, man, do I have time to take off from my business to write a book on how the criminal justice works in Harris County? Or what would be the easiest way for me to educate people? And so I looked into, making your own TV show. I came and took a couple of classes up here and created this format and saying, it would be interesting to learn about the criminal justice system through people's crime stories. That's how I got started, just to educate people. This is like my community service to educate people because so many people are uninformed. And as a defense attorney for 22 years, I got many calls from moms of kids who their kids got 20 years, 30 years. But the lawyer said that he was going to get probation. But the judge ended up giving him time. And now I want you to undo it. As you know, Danny, you can't undo it once it's done. Right. So I have to tell moms, you should have called me before you did that. Instead of afterwards. You went with the lawyer you thought was best. So why, I understood why they were calling me. They wanted for me to undo what was done. And then they said, I don't have any more money. I spent it all on the other lawyer.
They want you to do it for free.
They wanted me to do it for free, but to undo something was impossible. So that shows you that people in the system, with their children in the system, don't understand the system. Because once you get convicted, that's it. You can appeal it. You can appeal it, but only a fraction. Like 0.001% of all cases are flipped on appeal. They just don't get turned because people don't understand what the appellate process is for. It's to determine whether the judge made an error in letting evidence in or not letting evidence that they should have let in. So it's a grade card of the judge. It's not whether you're guilty or not. The judge and the jury found you guilty. That's our American system. So if they found you guilty, you're guilty. Unless the judge made a mistake in letting some evidence in. And even if you get lucky enough to get it overturned, you got to go back to trial with that evidence that the judge let out, then you get it in. You just get a new trial based on what the judge, if the judge didn't let something in that they should have, you get another trial with that evidence in. And that's really it, but that rarely happens.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, Vivian, but on the election coming up, it's going to be very important. And one of the things, and I'm not trying to make it partisan, but you typically find Republicans outvote Democrats in primaries.
Right.
And in the general, Democrats typically do well. It's going to be interesting how this thing turns. And I think if people sleep come November, this county can start moving back in favor of Republicans. So I think,
could.
Whether it's judges, civil, criminal, family, whatever the case may be, I think people can't sleep on that. The district attorney, the county attorney, you just got to be mindful how important voting is.
Absolutely.
And you have to turn out and vote.
Let me add some context to what you just said. Texas is a majority Republican state with Republicans controlling every statewide office.
Yep.
Texas has majorities. Texas Republicans have majorities in the state house, the Senate, and all of it's entirely Republican Texas Supreme Court. So when you look at the model of the Supreme Court at the federal level, in the House of Representatives and the Senate, well, we know that it's divided up between so many Republicans and so many Democrats. Same way in the Senate. Right now, we have a small majority in the Senate, and Republicans has a small majority in the House of Representatives. But when you look at the model of Texas, they control both all of the House and all of the Senate and the Texas Supreme Court, majority Republicans. And it's been like that for a long, long time.
A long, long time.
And if you look at the map, it doesn't look any, it got close at one time. It looked like they didn't say we were turning purple.
Yeah, they said purple.
They used that term purple.
They said purple.
It was a time where the color was changing.
Under Obama, when Obama was there, it was purple.
Right. But I've always talked about Houston. One of the assets of being in Houston is it's a blue city in a red state. The politics here, when you look at the officials, the judges, they look and represent the minorities.
And let me just tell you this, that's only been since 2018.
Really?
That came with Beto O'Rourke. Oh yeah, even when Obama was winning, Republicans were still winning some of the county. So remember, there's the city that has 2.5 million people. That's the city of Houston. That's where Councilman Boykins was. And then there's the county, which is what I'm running for, and that has 4.8 million people. It's twice the size of the city. So the city is patrolled mostly by HPD, Houston Police. The county gets the unincorporated areas outside the city. But the county represents about 86 municipalities. I mean, I'm talking about Webster, which has their own mayor, Bel Air has their own mayor, and police, Kingwood, Spring, because a lot of people say, I live in Humboldt, I can't vote for you. Yeah, you can, that's Harris County. Wherever you pay property taxes, that's where you can vote. So keep that in mind, it's big.
One thing I want to tie into what Danny was saying, when Beto O'Rourke was running for governor, I was on his finance committee, and I had a chance to go to El Paso election night. And I was there. I mean, I was devastated, man, not only by losing, but by the margin. So I called my wife. I went to my hotel room, man. I was devastated. And I said, baby, not only we lost, we got beat. And she said, about 900,000 votes. She said, how many people in Harris County? I said, about 4 million, almost 5. She said, look at how many voted, 1 million something. She said, how many in Dallas County? How many in Travis County? She said, you check around the state, Democrats just not voting. We have the numbers. The question becomes, what will motivate us? This guy running in the Senate race right now, Colin Allred.
I watched him.
He's running a campaign more to the middle.
He's a football player, wasn't he?
Former Houston Titan, Tennessee Titan.
Right.
And he's moving more to the middle with his positions. You talk to him, you'll be impressed. He won. He beat Pete Sessions.
He's going to get Ted Cruz now,
Yes,
right?
he ran and beat Pete Sessions, who was a Republican in the House, and so he's moving. And hopefully that will kind of move the position of the Democratic Party, because where we are right now is going to make it very tough to turn this state back. And you know, you have people like Colin and others that are moving in that direction to say, hey, look, in order to make a change, you're going to have to make a change. And but if we turn out and vote, man, we have to give people something to vote for, Danny and Vivian, because you'll wake up in the morning and only the people who hear lies and red meat lies, they will turn out and vote.
Well, let me add another factor to this conversation.
Yeah.
So there are 254 counties in
Yes.
Texas. That's the issue. But only about 6 are Democrat. So that leaves 248 counties that are Republican. Now, many of those counties are small, and the only news they have, big news, is Fox News, national Fox News. They don't even have MSNBC. You go to some of these country towns in Texas, they're just listening to one party. But just think, so the big ones, the big cities and counties, San Antonio, Bexar County, El Paso, Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, Corpus Christi, and a few others. It might be a few others. But just think, even though the cities are small, it's about 245, 248 of them that are all Republicans. So how do you change it? Keep in mind the historical point. In the Civil Rights Act of 1964, when Lyndon Baines Johnson signed it, he said, I will lose the South for 50 years. Because Texas was Democrat. All the South was Democrat before he signed the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which in our neighborhood, the deed restriction said blacks couldn't live there. Mm-hmm. But that anywhere that was on a contract in the whole United States, anywhere it was, you had to strike that line out. That's what the Civil Rights Act of 1964 did. So the deed restrictions could live on, but anything it was unconstitutional to have that in there. So you had to have the deed restrictions without that line in it. And that's when a lot of blacks moved into, integrated a lot of neighborhoods, including the rich part of Third Ward. So you have to keep that in mind. And so he was thinking it would take 50 years. He was just about right, because that's where we are now, except for Trump. If we hadn't had the Trump factor, it would have been a little bit more balanced, because we had hope that when Barack Obama was there, that's when the 50 years came. We thought, oh my God, he was right. But then came Trump. And you know what I'm saying?
I will push back and say, before Trump, and to Dwight's point, what we're missing out on, when they created the Tea Party and they started meeting these town halls, they started building momentum.
Yep.
They lost it when Barack got elected, but the MAGA is just another model of the Tea Party. When them grouping together and saying what we can do, they were willing to get off work, not eat or nothing, and meet and have these conversations about.
But they didn't have a good leader, because at that point, the Republican leaders were still trying to be diplomatic, which is what we want from our politicians, is diplomacy. They didn't have a crazy Tea Party-like person like Trump, because Trump doesn't care about diplomacy. He doesn't care about a democracy.
They weren't far right.
Right. I mean, he just wants to win. I mean, he doesn't care if he destroys the country winning. And that's not the democracy that we were trained with. I mean, just think of what happened to Nixon. I mean, Nixon, his own Republican Party took him down. That would never happen now. I mean, that would never happen now, because people had integrity then. And let me just go back to our local elections. Being a judge is a difficult thing. If I'm lucky enough to be elected, my decisions won't always please people, because as Dwight knows, working in the DA's office, it's a house of pain. You can have two sides fighting. I tell this story all the time. I'll have one mega black preacher calling me saying, the defendant on a case downtown is at my church, he didn't do it, he's been to prison, he's done his time, and they're picking on him. Then I'll have a preacher from another mega black church call and say, the victim of a crime that same guy did, you need to make sure the DAs dismiss it. You need to make sure the DAs prosecute him to the fullest extent of the law. So you got to let who's right and who's wrong? What am I supposed to do?
But Vivian, the difference with you, unlike a lot of people, people respect you, and they respect your opinion. And
I tell them, look, you're going to have to let the process take its course.
And if you are fortunate enough, if God said the same, you become a judge, people gonna respect your opinion because you're the type will go to that pastor and as much evidence you can show without violating anything, you do it because you're an open book.
Right.
So I think you don't realize the strength of your reputation.
Right, and in those situations, I explained to both pastors, and they understood when we hung up the phone. They understood, they trusted me, and the right thing happened. I think the case was eventually dismissed, or there was a trial. I forgot what happened, but they let the process take its place because nobody who knows who's telling the truth.
And a lot of people don't know when they make that call to you until you explain it. And I think if you're fortunate enough to become a judge, I think the beauty of that, Vivian, is that experience is on the bench.
Right.
You may not agree with everything, but you have somebody who understands. You're talking about people's lives.
Right.
Experience is on the bench. You got me?
Right.
And I think that's important. But I want to go back to one thing. You shift from the federal. I want to be clear about one thing. It was something came across Facebook, Danny and Vivian, this week. It said Biden had a picture of President Biden, and it says, "I may be old, but I get things done."
Right. That's great.
Look at this economy. Look at what this man has done. And look at what he's done in particular with appointments and opportunities for folk and all these college kids. If a college kid doesn't get out and vote for him after he's forgiven student debt, they need their butt whooped.
Right.
And I think what Biden did was say, if we can give money to foreign countries, we can take care of our people here. So let's cover some of this debt, and people are going to criticize them either way.
Either way.
Cover some of this debt, and hopefully they re-stimulate the economy with that new income, and the people are doing that. So I give him a lot of credit for what, you can't put a negative thought in my head about
One of the mistakes I think he made with the, I forgot, what is my daughter? She's not a millennial. She's a Generation Z. I don't know what she's, an X. I don't know which one she is. But, the young late 20s, early 30s generation, they wanted Kamala Harris to tweet and communicate to them what was going on. They felt like she was young enough
just to keep them engaged.
To keep them engaged. They were used to Trump doing it, and they wanted an advocate that said, at least weekly what was going on and what was happening for them. And I think that if the Democrats don't win, it's going to be because of that, because they're not engaged. I mean, they're not voting. They'll do social media, but they don't know what has happened to help them. Because a lot of people whose loans were forgiven, that program, one of those programs started under Obama. It's still going on, and a lot of them are older. They're in their 50s and 60s and still have student debt. Because I have a friend of mine that's at 69. She told me all her old debts were forgiven. Because a lot of people have student loans that are just atrocious. So a lot of the kids, there are programs like the Obama program, you have to work for a government entity for 10 years before it's forgiven. So it takes a while to be forgiven.
But Joe Biden didn't do that. President Biden, he wiped them away.
But didn't they sue him for that?
Yeah, they said, but it's back on. They end up. But to Morgan's point, your daughter, that's an excellent idea. When you said that, I was just kind of
that's what she was disappointed. In the first 6 months, she was like, Kamala's not communicating with us. We don't know what she's doing. We know as mature adults that they had to sit down and work, because every time we follow a Republican, a Democrat follows a Republican, you got to fix a lot of things. And so we know that they were there working. But the kids, the young adults, don't see it that way. They see that somebody she was all up front, Divine Nine, y'all all vote for me. I'm younger, I've had this experience. And then she disappeared. And that's the way they feel. They don't realize, she's working. You have to. She wanted to know. The information is there to give people on social media, and they expected that. So now Biden is everywhere. As soon as you turn on social media, he's everywhere. I don't know if Biden didn't want her to steal his shine.
I was just about to say, Vivian, and I've done a lot of work in Washington. And prior to President George W. Bush becoming president, where Dick Cheney was the vice president, even when Herbert Walker was a vice president under Reagan, they always take the second chair.
Right.
Okay. Cheney became close to chair -1, or he was right there.
Right.
So Cheney made people see the vice president role as being more engaged and controlling a lot of things, right? And then after Bush came out, Obama came, Biden was a supporter. A lot of people don't realize this. President Obama did not have the foreign relation experience as Biden did. And so Biden helped him with a lot of those issues. Now Biden's the president. Kamala Harris, he's from the old school. Kamala has to come in and be the vice president. I think the second term, and I think Biden wins, the second term, you'll see Kamala out front more. People forget this about Kamala Harris. During that Democratic primary, she jumped on Biden.
Oh, yeah.
And she was very smart. She knows her stuff. She's prepared. But because she's been silent, and people like Morgan and others, a lot have said, where is Kamala? They don't understand the role of vice president, not to upstage the president.
Right. They thought she would be the voice of the president. You know, they knew he was old and he wouldn't be tweeting like Trump, but they wanted her to tweet for him. You know, like, this is what President Biden and I have done today, or this is what, you know, this is the role.
But then
that
people
we're playing.
think Biden in there in a casket.
Right.
So if she's doing all the communication, is he alive?
Right.
So you know, I understand, but you're right.
I don't know how we deal with that. One of the things I wanted to talk about, this appraisal district, this new thing that Paul Betancourt asked for in the Senate Bill 2 that he drafted, that was turned into a proposition that people voted for. I read that it's only happening in counties that have over 75,000 people.
Yeah.
So it's not happening in all the counties, but it is happening in a lot of counties. In a lot of the small counties with just 75,000 people, since we have 4.8 million people, it's very expensive for them to run another election like this, to have two, because that's basically what this one is for, is to have that election. So I just wanted people to know to get out to vote. If you're local at Harris County Votes is where you Google to get information. The primary runoff is not until May 28th. That's the Tuesday after Memorial Day. Early voting is just going to be the 20th through the 24th. That's Monday through Friday. So make sure you get out to vote. HarrisVotes.com will not have the information out on that election until May 6th.
Yep.
After May 6th. After this election is over that's going on now, where Election Day is Saturday, May 4th, not until then will the information be uploaded on the primary ballot. So really pay attention to what's going on. Now, if you're a senior or you are eligible to vote by mail, then you have both ballots already.
Yeah.
They're already out. And one of the things I learned this year is if you voted in the primary for March and you registered for early voting, there was a box that you could check to say, I want the early ballot, I want the mail-in ballot for the whole year. And many people, that's why so many people got them already, is that there was a box you could check, and so people were getting them right away. You didn't have to apply each time, you just applied at the beginning of the year. So a lot of people have those ballots right now. So if you have them, make sure to fill them out and put a stamp, but it is two different ones with two different information on there. But I do believe that Jarvis Johnson and Molly Cook are on both of them.
Mm-hmm. But also, you're so right, Vivian. I hope they don't vote in the special and then forget to vote in the runoff. Right,
because the primary runoff is the people who are going to represent you in November. So you must vote, in the May 28th.
And your opponent is a Republican?
Not right now. My opponent right now is a Democrat. So what I'm running for is Democrats against Democrats. And there are quite a few. It's not just me. It's not just Molly Cook and Jarvis. There's some Court of Appeals elections that have runoffs in them. There are a couple of those. So it's not going to be a real long ballot May 28th, but it might be about 10. If the other one had 50, this one it'll have less than 10. But there are some runoffs in other positions.
How do you explain in a red state that it ended up being just two Democrats and not a Republican that you run against?
Because the Republicans right now run against Republicans. And the Democrats run against Democrats. This is where we get together and whoever
It's another vote after this one.
In November. It's November, yes, wow. November. The only reason why the presidential is not a big deal is because nobody's really running against Trump, so he's the Republican representative, and nobody's really running against Biden, so he's the representative. But when Obama came, since there was a bunch of them running in the Democratic primary, that's when everybody came out to the Democratic primary. But remember, when you already have a president that is of one party, you have a president running against an ex-president. So you don't really have anybody in the primaries to really educate you about primaries.
But Vivian, hang on, Danny, let me cut you off. You just made and proved a point. You are politically astute. I'm listening to you, and you are confused with this process.
Right.
So if Danny is confused, voters are confused.
Because it's a primary, and everybody get excited. We went out and voted, and we came back. Vivian won. No, she won. She has to go to a runoff. Because I'm talking from a layman or from the street.
That's you and 98% of the population.
And so you have to explain that to people.
Yeah.
And so when I'm out advocating or campaigning or stomping for Vivian, I try to give more context to what's going on in the process. Did she? Vivian won. No, she won to be in the runoff. Why did? I thought she won. No, she didn't.
We did go to bed hoping tomorrow morning we wake up because it was so close.
And so you have to win 50% or more of the votes. And if one person has 49, another person has
2.
You have to get over the 50% threshold.
That's right.
50% plus 1.
Plus 1. So if neither candidate does, the top 2.
Well, if you have 3 or 4, you're not. But if it's 2, one of them's gonna get more votes than the other. It's just I don't know what happens if it's a tie. I've never heard of a tie.
But if it's more than 3.
Well, if it's more than 2, that's when you get runoffs.
Right, because it's going to be the.
So I was in a race with 3 people.
Right.
So I got 49.29%. One person got 21%, and the other person got 31%. So, or something like that. That might not be right. Maybe it's 20% and 31%. But that's the way it works. So if it's 3 people in an election, so that's why Jarvis and Molly are in a runoff, because there was about 5 or 6 of them in that race. There was a bunch of them in that race. Now, some people were lucky, like Smokey Phillips, who'll be the new constable, Precinct 7. He was in a 3-way race, maybe even 4. 3-way race, but he won straight out. Yeah, he won straight out. He got like 60% of the vote. So
we don't even know who your Republican opponent is going to be yet.
No, we do. We do. Just think about this. Both sides, if you're going to be in the November, are running in the primary in March. So you know who it is. The Republicans are not, they didn't have contention. So it's only one person. The court I'm running for was new. It was opened in October of 2023. And when that happens, the governor appoints. And so the governor appointed someone that took the bench November 27th of 2023. So he's been there December, January, February, March, April. He's been there 5 months presiding. So he didn't have to campaign, and he's on the ballot, but he doesn't have an opponent. He didn't have an opponent on the ballot in March. So the Republicans didn't run against each other. There's people that are running as Republicans, but because Harris County has been Democrat for the last couple of cycles, all the fight was in the Democratic Party to be the representative. People who were probably Republicans switched over to be Democrats. I've been told that my opponent and others, when Obama was running, might have been voting Republican. You can switch. You can pull
up a voting record now.
Yeah, you can switch. So people, you can switch.
But Vivian, you're again back to your experience, and I think to deal with what you deal with daily. I mean, it's no question you're qualified and you should be elected for this bench. Danny, you and I and others have to do what we have to do to try to help her get there, because it's so important. And one other thing, dealing with what we deal with and just people we talk to every day, if Vivian is a judge in the 486 and something happened in another court, not that you ask her to talk to the judge, which is illegal, but just get information. That's the Vivian for the community. She gonna make certain that
you're educated about the system.
Educated about the system.
Right.
And I'm not saying others won't do it. I'm just telling you what we know. And I think it's gonna bring a lot of value to our community. So I'm just grateful that she's running, and we're gonna do what we can to help her.
I'm just grateful that you're willing to explain, because it's complicated right now. I was actually block walking Saturday with 2 precinct chairs in the Senecawood area, and one of the precinct chairs thought I was on the ballot that's right now. She was like, she'll be on the ballot on Monday, the early vote. And I didn't know she was telling people that we were passing out literature for multiple people, not just me. And I caught her. I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm not on this one right now. So don't let the lady think she's going to vote for me next week. I'm on the one that starts May 20th for early voting. Yeah. And we have a small window. It's just 5 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It's not long like this one. And then the actual election is May 28th. So it's confusing to people who are even precinct chairs. That's what's important.
Let me also say, Vivian, for this special seat, I'm voting tomorrow. We need to turn out and vote.
We do.
We need to vote, because this is real important. This Harris County Central Appraisal District.
And how many spots do we have? 3 spots.
We have 3 at-large seats.
So does everybody have an opponent?
On this card.
That's all the Democrats.
Yeah, these are all Democrats. And,
that's all the Democrats. So Kathy Bluford Daniel was the only Democrat?
Yeah, she's no. Janice Hines, who is my neighbor.
No, I'm talking about place 1.
Place 1.
So she's by herself. Oh, no wonder she wasn't too worried about it. Yeah. So I wonder why. And then in place 2, it's like 4 people on there, And then place 3 is 2 people.
My
so
neighbor
she,
is one, Janice Hines.
Oh, Janice
She's
Hines.
a Delta, yeah.
I know. Yeah. You gonna throw that in? Delta like me, huh?
That's right.
So, and I understand this Jay Bill is a real young guy.
Oh, okay.
Right? They say he's a real young guy.
But does he have experience to do the job? That's what's important. You're talking about something very important.
That would be interesting to know. I'm not going to say what I've heard. I'm not going to talk about rumors because I've never met the young man.
Yeah.
But it is important that you know what an appraisal district does, appraisal board member does.
So let me highlight again for my peers that may have experienced, some vacationing time in the criminal justice system here in Texas. Did you know, Vivian, that I graduated in 1982, and I went into the criminal justice system in 1989.
So talk about when were you in the military?
So I went in 82 and got out in 86.
Okay.
And then I found myself dealing with the same barriers mentally and sometimes physically that a person faces when they get out of prison. Now, I'm going to say that again. A lot of veterans, when they leave the military, often experience some of the same biases that people experience when they get out of jail and prison. And it's documented. Even though they tell us thank you for your service, a lot of employers and people in the public have a fear of people that have been in the military because of one thing, PTSD. Mm-hmm. So sometimes they're like, yeah, you've been out there, but are you okay mentally? And so that sometimes keeps a barrier from us getting hired. Mm-hmm. And what do? We often get lost in the sauce, start treating our own disappointment by self-medicating. And 1 out of 21 veterans take their lives every day in this country, which is a number you can't even wrap your mind around why a veteran would take his life. But it's happening, but I digress. I'm getting our point. So my point is that by 1989, I found myself in the criminal justice system. Did you know they didn't change the law to allow felons to vote until 1997?
Okay. Now let me just say this. There was a time, and I thought it was 1992, when I first became a lawyer in 1992, felons could vote after 2 years of being off paper. There was that time, and then Harold Dutton, I know, supported a ban to be immediately afterwards. So I mean,
so
you might be right.
So the 1997 law may have got rid of the 2-year
I think that's what it did. I think it got rid of the waiting. You used to have a 2-year waiting period.
Because June 19, 2019, I reported for the last time to the parole office. And I remember it was, you know what, I didn't go on Facebook. I didn't make a big production about it. This was a personal journey I had been on for
2019.
26 years.
For 26 years, you were either in prison or on paper.
And so this was between me and my God. In my head, I was focused, and I was on my way there. I sat in the office, and you can't take pictures in there, so I had my little smartphone.
You're always trying to take some damn pictures.
I had to document this. This is historical,
I used to take him in jail. Trying to take pictures.
It's
gonna
a
get me in
monumental
trouble.
time in my life. This has to be documented for the archives. So I had my phone, picture where the lady went to you, and I took a little picture. I didn't post it. It's for me. But that was the end of a journey. 26 years I had been either in prison or sitting in a parole office reporting someone. That was on a Tuesday. I went to St. John's on Sunday. And when church was over with, guess what was going on in the lobby?
Voter registration.
Voter registration. Man, I went to the table.
I know you were proud.
At this time, I went live. I had somebody holding the camera, and I did a I documented as much as I could what I was doing and the journey, and I posted it, and I registered to vote in 2019. Guess what happened in 2020? What was going on in 2020?
You voted.
For who?
Barack Obama.
Oh man, I showed out. Oh, did I show out? Just before you go in to vote, with all the flags out there, I went live again.
No, that was Biden.
20 was Biden.
No.
20 was Biden.
Yeah, 20 was Biden.
So 20 was Biden?
Yeah.
20 was Biden.
So what year did Barack run his second term?
12. He did 8. He ran in 8 and he ran in 12. So maybe you think about 16? No, 12.
He
8,
did
12.
8, then
He
Trump
did 12.
did 4.
No, he did 12. He ran in 8 and 1. He ran in
What's
12,
secretary-
and then Trump ran in 16 and
then
1,
Biden.
and then Biden won in 20. So this is 24. So it's a presidential. So you sure you got off in 19?
I may got my dates wrong because I voted for Barack.
Okay, so you have forgotten. You've been such a citizen for so long. You forgot when you got off parole.
I am feeling myself. I have been off.
So you got off parole in 6. You got out of parole in 16. No. 12.
I voted for Barack.
It must have been in 12. He ran in 8 and 12. He won in 8 and 12.
So maybe the little numbers are off, but I did get a chance to vote. The thing is that I took advantage of that I could do it. And I've been advocating for others that when they get out paper, because I work at St. John's Path of Freedom, is a ministry that we have at St. John's. We meet every Thursday from 5:30 to 6:30, 2019 Crawford Street. It's a transformational faith-based support group aimed at changing the prison cycle by reducing recidivism. I know that says a lot, but what it basically is, I went to prison 3 times. I didn't go 4. So I work with men and women that have been in and say, like, hey, let's put not a comma behind your life, but a period.
All right, we got 1 minute. And I want you to try to wrap this up, Dwight.
Well,
have some closing statements for me.
I just want to thank you again, Vivian, and wish you the best. I'm going to do what I can to help you. Danny, good to see you again. I just think it's important we turn out and vote. This was a great segment because you have a lot of people confused about what's going on right now with these elections in front of us. Please get out and vote for the Harris County Central Appraisal District and the Senatorial District 15 because your vote will matter, and hold your people accountable.
That's right. And just like I echo what these 2 gentlemen have said, please get out and vote. There's early voting going on right now, April 22nd through April 30th, with the final election day, Saturday, May 4th. And then the primary runoff is going to be, the early voting is May 20th through 24th. And with the actual primary election day is May 28th. That's Tuesday, May 28th, the day after Memorial Day. We really appreciate you listening tonight. Hopefully you've learned something about our election process, the importance of voting. Why is it important to vote? Because you're a citizen that pays taxes, and we have to live together in this democracy. Thank you for watching, and have a great night. Good night.
So Barack?
Thank you for tuning in again. Tonight we have something really good, a hot topic in the news this week. He's been charged with crime. This is a show where